If you feel like your partner in your intimate relationship is taking too much, consider this.
No one else is going to believe you until you believe in you. So just get out there and do shit like nothing's happening.
That in an intimate relationship, we have two people with completely different value systems coming together. Now, at first in an intimate relationship, everyone sort of displays their best parts, their best traits. And so what happens is, if you're drunk in a nightclub and you're partying, because being drunk in a nightclub is always the best place to try and figure out who your life partner is going to be. But what you do is you both find things that you can relate to each other. And over time, you start to build that relationship by showing your good side. But after a while, you start to then express who you really are through your value system and what's important to you. Now, depending on different studies, they say around about 20 to 25% of a couple's value system is very much the same. So if one person has a really high value on kids or family, the other person normally has in the top 20 to 30% of their values, family or kids. Then it might be one person has business, but the other person has friendships and relationships and creativity. So you'll start to notice that there are differences, but there are also around 20% similarities. What can happen though is that in an intimate relationship, is that as the relationship starts to evolve, when you start living with each other or hang out with each other, you can start to get resentful because it can feel like your partner is taking away too much instead of giving back in return. That's normally a clear sign of unclear communication around what's important to you in your value system, and also making sure that you create fair value exchange amongst each other. I was working with a client a while ago, and his highest value was wealth creation. So he made a lot of money in his business. He was making, millions of dollars every year in personal income. And his partner also had a well-paying job, but wasn't making millions of dollars. And so what happened was she spent a lot of money on things like her clothes and her fashion and the way that she looks. So she was very attractive and would spend a lot of money on making sure that she looked great, because for her, beauty was important, exercise was important, health was important, food was important, and also caring for those around her that she loved was important. Then for him, he would work really, really hard in his business consistently to provide support for that intimate relationship. But they both started building up frustration and resentment towards each other because he felt like she would always ask him for money and it was taking away from his highest value. He didn't see how her having those values was actually helping him to make more money. So then at the same time, she was building up resentment because she felt like she always had to look after him and babysit him and nurture him, especially with food and cooking and making sure the home dynamic was great. And also she felt an expectation that she had to look a certain way consistently. And so they fought quite a lot, and then they eventually broke up. When they came to me, they both loved each other, but they just built up all this resentment. And what I did was I sat them down and showed them how by him generating large amounts of wealth, it actually made her life the life that she wanted, which was that she could work on her beauty, she could also work on her health, she could also create a beautiful home and a beautiful dynamic in their relationship where she felt safe and secure, as though she was giving back to those that she loved, which was really important for her in her life in order to feel fulfilled. But then at the same time, he didn't realize how much money he actually makes by having her in his life with those value systems. And what he used to find was that he would bring clients to his house, and his house always looked beautiful, so his clients appreciated that beauty in the house. Also, he didn't realize that by her cooking and her looking after him consistently in that way and making sure that he had great food and great health, that it actually gave him mental clarity and the ability to generate large amounts of income through what he was doing. And also, because of her beauty, they would go to certain functions which would naturally attract a lot of the older gentlemen, because he was only a young businessman. It would attract a lot of the old gentlemen that would come over to talk to her, but then he'd end up doing business with, and so he actually made a lot of money. And when they realized that both of their value systems linked, and they realized that as a team they work better together and they actually achieve more when they work together, instead of fighting against each other and creating frustration and guilt and resentment towards each other, which isn't a great way to have a relationship, because it normally creates arguments, which is a way of communicating, just not a very effective way of communicating. If you can communicate of what's important to you in life and see that there's fair value exchange happening consistently in that relationship, and your ability to communicate those fair exchanges, then it can actually help couples to really come together and become a superpower. The other thing that I found happen is because of society's norms that we create, both of them felt that her looking after her beauty and her looking after her health and the family dynamic wasn't as valued in our society as what it is to create large amounts of wealth, which is ridiculous because they work together with each other in order to expand. So don't let society or people around you dictate the way that you live life, because your greatness comes from living your own individual values. And everyone has their own individual value systems that are just as wealthy and just as worthy of being loved, accepted, and appreciated in our world. So just remember, great relationships are about clear communication and fair value exchange and seeing how your partner helps you, not hinders you.